بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Inshallah, today we will be moving on to the letter Saad. So today's topics are: number one, how is the letter Saad pronounced? Number two is how Saad mutaharrik and how Saad sakin pronounced. And lastly, two common errors that happen when someone is pronouncing Saad. While we're going through the letter Saad, we should remember the letters Sin and Za as they are pronounced from the exact same place. So first is, how is the letter Saad pronounced? So Saad is pronounced when contact is made between the tip of the tongue and the back of the lower teeth. So the tip of the tongue is going to be touching the back of the lower teeth when the letter Saad is pronounced. Like Za and Sin, because the tip of the tongue is on the lower teeth, there is an area above the tongue that's very small area. This is actually much bigger than the actual area that there's some space left on top, and it's a very tight space. And when we let out the letter Saad, it creates a slight whistling sound, which you talked about before, which is called the sound of Safid. So when you say Saad, so you can kind of hear a slight whistle sound, a very slight one. So that sound is called Sophia. That's happening because this area on top of the tongue there's very little area left here. Otherwise, the tip of the tongue is touching the bottom teeth, and on top there's that little area. That air is creating the whistle sound for the letter Saad. When pronouncing the Saad, the back of the tongue gets raised to create that heaviness. If you don't raise the back of the tongue, you're going to have a Sin. So when you have a Sin, the tongue isn't in the same place. The tongue is still touching the bottom teeth. But when you raise the back of the tongue, so that's happening because the tongue in the back is actually being not raised. But anyway, the tongue, yes, the tongue of the back of the tongue is being slightly raised, which is creating that curve in the middle, which creates the heaviness of the Saad. So that is the letter Saad, that the tip of the tongue touches the bottom teeth, and then you let out the sound while the back of the tongue is raised higher. That creates the Saad sound, and that whistling sound comes with it. So now moving forward, let's go through the examples. How is Saad mutaharrik and sakin pronounced? So when Saad has a haraka, very simple. We release the tongue from the bottom teeth, let it go from that area, and make whichever motion we need to make for a haraka. When you start off the sound of the Saad, when it has a fatha dhamma kasra, it will only be air. But by the time you pronounce the haraka, there will be vibrations felt. We talked about this before. So for example here, sa'iqa. Sa'iqa. So sa. So you let the tongue go and then sa. And then sudurikum. So su. And then siyamin. So that si. So sa, su, and si. When Saad is sakin, the tongue remains on I don't know why I said I have upper palate. It does not remain to the upper palate. The tongue remains on the bottom teeth. I'll have to fix this. The tongue remains on the bottom teeth while the air is produced to make the letter Saad. In this situation, there will be only air and there will be no vibrations being felt in. There will be minor vibrations, but barely felt in the throat. So the tongue stays on the bottom teeth. This is an error here. It's not should be close to the upper palate. It means it will stay on the bottom teeth. So for example, fasda. So so just air. Fasda. Or yus'aqun. So again, just air. Yus'aqun. There's only air coming out because it's sakin. Yus'aqun. So that's a mutaharrik and a sakin Saad. So again, the tongue ends up touching the bottom teeth. Now let's just go through two common errors that do happen regarding the letter Saad. First error is, and this error is actually inside books of Tajweed, and it's actually found in books of Tajweed in both the Indian subcontinent and the Arab world, the same mistake. So some books of Tajweed mention that the tongue must touch the upper gums or the roots of the upper teeth to pronounce a Saad. So you're gonna have some right now. I mentioned to pronounce Saad, the tip of the tongue is touching the bottom teeth. Some books are gonna tell you that your tongue should be touching the upper teeth or the upper gums to pronounce Saad. That is incorrect. And this is incorrect because number one, the tongue should be resting on the bottom teeth, not the upper teeth. If you put it on the upper teeth, you're going to block the whistling sound. You can't create a whistling sound if there's a tongue coming right in the middle and blocking the whole thing from the top. One part of Saad is Safir. There should be that small gap for the whistling sound. If your tongue goes on your gums, you can't really take out that sound. Number two is some people might say that no, but when I pronounce the Saad, I feel like I'm touching the upper tongues. No, that's not what's happening. The feeling you're getting on your upper gums or your upper teeth is due to the condensed air and sound. That Safir that I talked about, because of that air being condensed there, that's that tightness that's there, that's creating that vibration or that air on top of around your top gums and your top teeth. That's why you feel like you're actively always touching the top of your mouth when pronouncing Saad. Whereas in reality, the tongue is supposed to be on the bottom teeth, and that air and the pressure is being felt on the top area. This is also why some books of Tajweed misunderstood the pressure to be actual touch. So it's not touch, nothing is touching the top of your, sometimes it may slightly touch here and there, but the moment you let the air out, the tongue will automatically go down and there will be some area left on top for the sound to go on. So again, your tongue is touching the bottom teeth and then the air is going from the top of your tongue out of your mouth. So that's one error that's made with Saad, that people are touching they're touching the top teeth instead of the bottom teeth, which is incorrect. And as I mentioned, this mistake is narrated in books of Tajweed, which makes it a bigger issue. Number two, error two is that the lips are not involved in pronouncing a Saad. What happens is when some people are pronouncing a Saad, they make their mouth like a wow. They're going to take their entire mouth and make it kind of like a wow. They're going to make it round, like this fully round, like a wow. Saad. That's incorrect. You're messing with the sound of the Saad. Saad is just supposed to be sa, su, us. If you make it round, it becomes kind of rounded, like us, su, sa. So it's too heavy. That's too heavy for Saad. And that actually makes it harder to read the Quran. If you're reading the Quran and you're pronouncing a Saad while making it like a wow, it will make it harder for you to actually read Saad whenever it comes in the Quran, because you're involving extra actions that are not supposed to be there. To pronounce the Saad, only put your tongue on the bottom teeth. That's it. You don't need to make a shape with your lips. Your lips will slightly move when you pronounce a Saad. That's a natural movement, but it's not intentional. It shouldn't be intentional. So any movement of the lips is incidental. It's happening just because you're trying to pronounce the letter of the air and the pressure is just making your lips move, but it should not be done purposely when you're pronouncing a Saad. So when a Saad is being pronounced, no lips are not supposed to be turning round to pronounce it. That is incorrect. Just put your tongue on the bottom teeth and then just let the air out. So your lips will kind of turn a bit, but that's okay. But people normally, when they're trying to pronounce the letter, they purposely start off by making their lips round, then they pronounce swad. That actually kind of produces something like a su sound instead of a sa, su, si, us, is. Not the sa, su, si, us, is. That's your rounding your lips. That's incorrect. And that's it for the letter Saad. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll move on to the hardest letter, which we may have to do in two parts, the letter Dad.